And with us right now, we've got Lola Pickett. Lola, you're the CEO of lolapickett.com, and that's LOLAPICKETT, two T's.com. Lola, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. I'm excited about this conversation.
So Lola, you practice transformational coaching for empaths and highly sensitive people. And I got to tell you, I'm going to raise my hand. Someone may or may not believe it, but that absolutely is me. And I can share it from my perspective. And then I'd love to hear your take on it. And I don't know that everybody is like this, but you and I were talking beforehand, when there is, when there are difficult situations, like for example, the really terrible situations we've had with race this year, when I see that and I see all of the animosity and I see the anger and the rage, and even though in many cases it might be rightly placed, it's so heavy for me to experience that. And I feel that empathy for that anger. But that, and, maybe it was a combination of some other things, but I really, as that stuff was going on, and I had, someone who was a dear friend of mine made a pretty dumb mistake with his own language, and he suffered for it. And, but I felt so bad for him. I felt so bad for the people that were feeling all of this, all this strong emotion. And it affected my emotional level, my emotional state. And I would absolutely classify it as depression for a good week and a half, 2 weeks. And is that, how would you diagnose me? I know not necessarily as a therapist. My wife is a family therapist, so she already no, you're definitely feeling depression. And it was generalized depression where it's just sitting with me. And it's just I can't shake this. This sucks.
It does suck. And I would say that is a pretty typical empathic reaction to cultural unrest and the rest of the things that are going on, which is, building on top of the pandemic and running a business and trying to figure out how you're going to show up for that and your family. And so being empathic and being an entrepreneur means that you've got to be able to hold yourself emotionally, feeling all the things because you're designed to do that, but at the same time developing resilience so that you can still show up for your relationships, for your commitments, for your impact, for your purpose, because we can't have the luxury of disengaging from the requirements of our lives because we feel uncomfortable, because we feel so much. And I find that a lot with my community, that it can tend to become this reason or justification not to participate fully in life because things are so overwhelming. And we can't afford to do that. And it doesn't really do anybody any good if we stay in that mode of, I don't know what to do. I'm in my fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. My nervous system is acting up. We've got to develop the emotional, energetic, mental, physical resiliency so that we can show up for life. I don't think it's going to get easier out there. I really don't. And it's not going to lessen the intensity because we are addressing some very important questions right now as a society. So, if we're here for it, we were born for these times, obviously, or we wouldn't be here. How do we support ourselves through it so that we can still be present in our lives, which is what is asked of us. And that's really what I'm here to support. I want the empaths of the world to be successful.
This is really important. And I was thinking about this, and I did have the time to be a little self-reflective, during this time. And I'm like, this impacts my ability to show up. And if we are truly, you think about professional athletes, for example, and, to truly be the best in the world, I think it's, at a particular sport, it's not out of the realm of possibilities for many athletes to get 80% of the way there. It's that final 10, 15% that take you from competency and even, truly being a super high level in your field. It's now we start getting into that final, that final 10 yards or whatever of that journey to truly mastering something and being the best at what you do. It's that being that master of those certain few things are what people are counting on. I mean, and that's, in my line of work, in what I do, I have to be one of the best at doing what I do. Otherwise, they can commoditize me and they can go to anyone if I'm just a
Exactly.
generalist. So it's really important. I share that because it's critical that we are playing at our best, in my opinion. It's
Yeah.
not that we shouldn't beat ourselves up if we're not, but we
No.
should always be aspiring to be and provide for our audiences what they can't get from anywhere else. So, I know, I've been some Tony Robbins events and that sort of thing. He'll talk about, 90% of the success or failure comes down to the psychology of the business owner. And
Yes.
if, she or he is not playing at their optimal best, it just, there are consequences to that. And so
Yeah.
I thought I'd share that. And I don't know what your take on that is.
Yeah, and I think there's an important differentiation to make as well between like mental toughness, which is what a lot of athletes are taught and a lot of what, high-level entrepreneurs are kind of trying to create for themselves. For an empath, that's not going to work because we aren't designed to be armored up. We are designed to be soft and to allow life to move us. And so when we armor up, it's actually this false mechanism of protection and kind of like distancing that we create for ourselves to make it safer to engage with life, but it doesn't feel good and it ends up becoming a toxic pattern. So resilience, how I look at it and what I teach, is not toughness. Resilience is essentially feeling equipped, feeling self-confident, and that self-confidence doesn't come from already knowing what to do and already being good at things. It comes from having the courage to face unfamiliar territories, to move in unfamiliar ways, to pattern your responses in a different way from what you've been habituated to for
Wow.
your whole life. So we're not talking mental toughness here. We're talking mental resiliency, which is basically courageous choices, being able to make decisions in your life that aren't reactive, that are responsive, that are coming from a place of intuition and from deep self-trust. And this means you have to be connected to yourself. You have to know yourself. You can't have self-trust if you're only paying attention to everybody else and not yourself, which is one of the empath's primary patterns. So we really
Yeah.
can go deep into that.
If, Lola, let's say that I have a very difficult situation that comes up and someone's just, to me, it feels like they're just resonating at a level of, even just like people that, I can feel like their energy, like it's a scarcity energy. It's a really negative, impatient or something like that. Like I feel it. And then it kind of like, like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what do I do when I
It can
feel that?
stick
Because
to
then
you.
it's like, oh, it does. And then it's like for
Yeah.
the next, 30 minutes to an hour or whatever, like, my wife will ask me what's wrong. And
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know or remember always, but it's
Yeah.
just something I kind of picked up. And it's just like, ugh.
The minute that you are aware that you've probably picked something up from someone, or even if it isn't something you picked up, even if it's something that's coming from inside of you, you need to ask yourself, what do I need right now? And who am I being right now? These are two questions that a lot of empathic folks don't ever ask themselves because they're not used to attending to their own needs. They're not used to
Mm,
turning their attention inward. It feels selfish to them. It feels narcissistic. It's
right.
actually the opposite of that. Because if you're not full of yourself, if you're not attending to yourself, who is, right? Who's in there? Who else's voices have you internalized? So to ask yourself, who am I being, can provide some very instantaneous feedback about whether you are in integrity with yourself, whether you're in alignment with yourself, whether you're showing up as the person that you know deep inside you need to be. And that person has needs. What are those needs? It could be as simple as, what, I really need to drink a water right now to help kind of like hydrate my internal space. I need to
Mm,
go for a walk. I need to take a deep breath. I need to take a break, get away from the screen. those needs are simple but really important, and they can help you reset very, very quickly when you've noticed that something's just off.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm loving this because I think what you said there, and I recognize that there's probably some people that will hear me say this and hear what you just said, and like, what, really? And then there are other people who are like, oh yeah, like what
Right.
you said, that it feels selfish of me to ask for what I need. I completely resonate.
Yeah.
My dear wife is a wonderful support for me, but I feel that if I show her my weakness, that I'm not being for her what I'm supposed to be, right?
Right.
I'm supposed to be a rock for her, sort of thing. So,
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, we've internalized all of these boxes that we try to limit ourselves to or fit into. We puzzle piece ourselves into societal programming, expectations, messaging around gender identity, even like how you're supposed to be as a leader in an entrepreneurial space.
Yep.
That can become a very limiting box that prevents us from attending to ourselves properly, from caring for ourselves properly. And, I will say it is okay to have needs. Having needs doesn't make you a needy person. It just makes you honest.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say that, okay. So two questions. What do I need right now? And who am I being? And I think
Yeah.
that really helps us. And I think what is the word I'm thinking of? Immediacy. Like we're aware of what's, and that awareness of what's going on rather than being unconscious to, I think that sometimes people can say, so I am depressed, and they just accept that's just the way that I am right now.
Yeah.
But I think that awareness gives us, and you're not saying it's not putting, I'm sorry, Lola, help me understand that one more time,
Yeah.
because you said it's not about being more resilient, right? Or
It's
it
not about
is, or
being tough. It's about
tough,
being
right?
resilient. Yeah.
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 So
Which means that
what
you
does
feel
what
like
does
you can rely
resilient
on
mean?
yourself.
Yeah, what does resilient mean as opposed to being tough? What's the difference?
Well, to me, resiliency means feeling equipped, feeling like you have tools that you can rely on, that you can trust yourself in your decisions, that you can take a leap of faith in your life. And that's not about being tough. It's not about muscling through or like fighting our way to the top. It's really about ultimate presence and deep, deep, deep faith, not only in yourself, but in life, in nature, in the divine, if you want to believe in something like that. You don't have to have a belief system or a spiritual faith, but if you don't trust yourself, you will try to armor your way and muscle your
Oh
way
yeah.
through, and you will exhaust yourself in the process. And for us as empathic folks, this is why a lot of traditional kind of business advice falls flat for us, because it's saying things like, well, feel the fear and do it anyway. And for us, that's not going to function so well. What we need to understand is how to work with our fear. How do we partner with our fear? How do we listen to our fear? How do we choose and discern what fear is beneficial and what fear is not? There's just as much pain associated with stagnation and self-abandonment as there is with growth and self-expression. Can we lean into the discomfort and the fears associated with growth and self-expression instead?
So in my case, where I'm just feeling this generalized depression,
Yeah.
and it's day after day, and I pretty much, like, maybe I don't know what's triggering it, or
Yeah.
maybe I do. Maybe I'm like, like I remember, so we live in Orlando, and when the Pulse shooting happened,
Yeah.
oh, I felt so bad. I mean, day after, I mean, I'm crying like right now.
Yeah.
When you have that violation that happens in your space, and it feels so offensive, and I really, that I had no idea that would impact me like it did when it happened. And I didn't even have, I had a friend who had a relative who was one of the victims.
Mm.
So it wasn't like I lost my son or daughter or something when
Yeah.
that happened. But even that, just because it happened in my community. I mean, I can ask myself, what do I need right now? But I'm like, I
I
need
don't even
to,
know.
I don't know. Yeah. What
Yeah.
happens when the answer is, I don't know?
Yeah. I love this question because I think one thing that is a disservice to us as humans is the need to avoid feeling moved by pain, and to like feel like it's not okay to be activated by these kinds of experiences, or rush to,
Mm.
heal from or get over this initial response. And I think that what is healthiest is taking some time, at first, as things happen like this, which continue to happen. And I want us to continue to feel the grief. I want us to continue to let it in, let it move us, because this is what we can build something real on. If we're wanting to create a different world where this kind of thing doesn't happen, we've got to first be with the truth of how harmful it is. And that's hard. It's hard and it's uncomfortable. And as empaths, we're going to feel it that much more deeply because of the way our nervous systems are wired. And you're right. At the beginning, you said, I don't know that everybody is like this, and everybody's not. As empaths, we're also highly sensitive people, and highly sensitive people, from what the current research shows, are only 20% of the population. So
Oh,
not
wow.
everybody's going to feel it as deeply. We're meant and designed to feel it deeply. And then how do we let it move us into a way of being? What is this teaching you about who you want to be? Like, if you can't answer the question, what do I need right now in the moment? All right, let yourself feel it. Let yourself feel it fully. Don't armor up against it or close down against it, because that is what will end up creating even more depression to begin with. How do we
Mm.
let it fully move through our bodies? How do we name what it is that we're feeling? Naming, somebody said, and I'll have to look it up and send you the name. Somebody said, if we name our emotions, we tame our emotions. And even just
Mm.
saying, I'm really depressed by this, instead of just pretending like I'm fine, I've got this, nothing's wrong,
Yeah.
I'm moving through, the more honest we can be with ourselves and really get curious about what is it that I'm feeling and where in my body am I feeling it, then we can begin to nurture and support ourselves. And there are ways we can support the nervous system when we don't have clarity around our needs, when we're procrastinating, when we're unable to focus, when something like this has happened, to help us regain our presence, which is where our power is. And I can
Yeah.
teach that to you. There's a very simple reset that we can do for the vagus nerve,
Yes,
which
let's do
is
this.
applicable all kinds of different situations, right? So this is something that is best done laying down flat on the ground without a pillow, but you can do it seated as well. So we'll do this version of it. Okay. So you
Okay,
ready?
sounds good. If you're driving a car, pull over,
Yeah.
ease the
Don't do
seat
this right
back.
now.
Don't do this while driving.
No, but it will leave you more alert and not kind of like woozy as some of these things can do.
Right.
So
Okay, great,
this is
great.
this is a good one to do. So what you're going to do first is you're going to cradle the back of your head with both of your hands with your fingers interlaced. So this is what my fingers look like. And you
Mm-hmm.
can just cradle it, and you'll feel that place. It's the occipital lobe of your head where you've got
Yeah.
that little like cradle spot. So you're
Yeah.
going to do that and sit up as straight as possible if you're going to do this seated. And what you are going to do is look straight ahead, and without moving your face or your neck or your body, you're going to move only your eyes to the right. So you're going to look to the right, and you're going to look as far to the right as you can. It's going to be a little bit uncomfortable potentially. And you're going to keep holding this position, which is a little awkward, until you feel some sort of release or response. And you'll feel like either your breath deepens or your shoulders will drop. Sometimes a sigh will come out. And you wait until you get that signal from your body. And when you do, you're going to look straight ahead again and then look to the left in the same way. And you'll feel that same kind of release. And you just wait for it. It is easier to do laying down to feel that release because you're more relaxed. You'll feel it. And then what you'll notice when your nervous system is supported and regulated, what you'll notice is that you're physically calm. Your pupils are at a nice dilation point. They're not pinpoints. They're not overly dilated. When we're stressed, our pupils dilate because we're trying to take in as much information
That's
as
it. That's
possible
right.
about where our threats are. And when we're stressed, most of us are stressed all day long. We're going into this state of constant reactivity to the threat, which keeps us from being able to focus. So as an entrepreneur, if you're finding yourself like, I can't sit here and write my web copy, I can't just like sit here and do this task, I can't seem to get focused, I keep procrastinating or putting things off or just multitasking, doing this reset can actually help you physiologically focus because your eye dilation will go back down. You're not going to be looking for threats. You're going to feel socially safe and accepted. And so you can show up for the things that are being asked of you, no matter what is going on out there, because there's always going to be something.
Lola, I'm on your website right now, lolapickett.com with 2 T's. And if someone's like, okay, I love what Lola's been talking about. By the way, my eyes feel a little, that little stretching
Yeah, right?
exercise. Yeah, I get it. That's pretty cool. I'll have to try it lying down. If I'm on your website right now, where would I go? You have a lot to offer. Where would be a great place for someone to begin or continue their journey with you?
Probably the best place to start, there's 2. One would be to take my empath quiz. So if you go to lolapickett.com/quiz, I have a little fun psychological quiz that'll teach you what kind of empath you are, because it's not just an on-off switch. If you're an empath, there are more nuances available to you, more information available to you about how those gifts show up and what kind of kryptonite and superpowers you're dealing with so that you can make more empowered decisions in your daily life. So lolapickett.com/quiz will get you to that, and you'll get more information when you give your email address to us. And then if you want to connect more deeply with how being an empath shows up in your life and in your business, your bank account, all these different aspects of our lives, go to my podcast. Empath to Power is the name of my show, and we have 63 episodes out now, and we're just still getting started, but having huge feedback on the impact of what our interview guests and just the content of that show has for empathic folks that are looking to have a bit of a different conversation about sensitivity.
Wow. Beyond your podcast, you also, just for someone who, let's say that they're like, oh no, like I want to dive in, and I'm sure that they would learn about this after taking your quiz. But just so folks know, you do have at least 3 courses here. You've got books. Do you mind sharing just a little bit about that?
Yeah, our foundational course is really the best place to go deeper with us, especially in this vein of teaching. That's called Empathology. And Empathology takes the pathology out of sensitivity and turns it into the study of it. And so we go through the neuroscience of being sensitive, and then we go through the social aspects of resiliency and how does that look in your life. What I'm finding is that a lot of our clients are entrepreneurs because they have found that even with all the marketing training and all of the strategies for their business, they're still not able to exceed their own plateaus. They're not able to quite make it all stick. And it's not a strategy problem at that point. It's a resilience opportunity. And so with resiliency, you actually will have the nervous system strength to see yourself through those areas of growth and unfamiliar territories that you're holding yourself back from unconsciously. So it's super powerful work. We go through the content over the course of 8 weeks, and then folks get lifetime access because it tends to bring up a lot. So we hold space for that on the long term.
Yeah. Well, and again, I want folks to think about, it's not just that you need, a coping mechanism, but think about the inattention or your inability to process this. What is the cost of that? What is the cost of that to your relationships? What is the cost of this to your business? If you, like I, feel negative things pretty deeply, and you aren't able to show up, and you show up to key meetings, but people know, hey, something, like I've had that, I've experienced that. And normally, I have a pretty bright energy.
Me too.
But occasionally I've shown up and, people can tell it's like, ooh, something's wrong with Josh. He's not normally at his typical, 8, 9, or 10
Yeah.
energy level. So I can't afford to do that too often. So,
Mm-mm.
well, great. Lola Pickett, thank you so much again. So you're at lolapickett.com. Your podcast, let's see, Empath to Power. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So if you're listening to this podcast, you can just go in your favorite podcast directory and just search for Empath to Power with Lola. You can see that there. And by the way, if you are watching the YouTube version of this, I want you to check out Lola's background and her video quality. I'm so proud.
It's so much fun.
Again, yeah, where we, again, most of us, in digital business and, in online business, we do so much over video. It's really important to make those investments to looking and sounding great. And Lola, you look and sound great. So you can go check out Lola's video quality, see her background, so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Well, Lola Pickett, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really appreciate all the value that you shared.
Thank you so much for having me, Josh. It's been great.